Hi folks, today I wanted to talk about West End Games, kind of go back over a few things that actually just kind of came to light. If no one knows, about a month or so ago, Lucasfilm released the old guide to writing Star Wars for West End Games. And as I read an article on it, I saw some of the clips they had of some of the stuff that they were telling their people West End Games was from their guide. Now if you don't know, West End Games did a lot of RPG stuff in the dark ages of Star Wars. I call it dark times. People say, oh, there was no dark time. There were dark times. In 1987, Marvel let go of the rights to Star Wars. Yeah, like that would ever happen. Yeah, okay, that was dark times, right? When no one wants to do Star Wars. They didn't want to do Star Wars comic books anymore. Marvel let go of Star Wars. And then the TV contracts got canceled. You know, so Ewoks, I think, was the only thing going at that time, but it did not get renewed for another season, so there was no Star Wars anywhere. There were no Star Wars books coming out, no Star Wars comics. All there was West End Games. And they did a good job, and I've talked a lot about West End Games and the excellent job they did, and how basically anyone who does role-playing games will tell you West End Games probably did it best. Now, I would probably second that. Because even though I do like a lot of the stuff that Fantasy Flight came out with earlier on, I do feel that West End Games just had that Star Wars feel. And looking at excerpts from their guide, I can see why. So today I wanted just to read to you a few things that are from that guide. First off, they say that Star Wars is a real universe. Star Wars is more than good guys versus bad guys. People in Star Wars universe are real people with real motivations, goals, faults, and weaknesses. Create three-dimensional, interesting, complex characters with depth. People have real motivations, just like people in our world. To get a good job, to get rich, to find a date. They don't do things without reason. People are good and evil, and many have high and lofty ideals, but many have realistic motives. Granted, the Empire is evil, but let's see some realistic evil. The Empire is trying to control people and maintain power. They're not going to execute people unless they think it'll get them something. Obedience from those who are around, for instance. The citizens of the Empire are more often than not just folks who don't realize how evil the Empire can be because it never affects them personally. Now, I love that. Talking about, hey guys, yeah, it's just bad, but don't make it cartoony bad. Make them really bad, you know, or give them a softer side. Like, not everyone hates the Empire, right? Not everyone does because they don't know. They don't know any better. They think, oh, all is fine. You know, the rebels are the bad guys. In fact, they paint them, you know, as the bad guys the whole time. And as we know, Emperor Palpatine spreading lies about them. Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? Anyway, also talks about thinking big. It says, think big. Don't underestimate the size of the scope of the galaxy of billions of stars with a hyperspace-linked culture that has been around for over 20,000 years. There is room for an astounding amount of diversity. Likewise, not everything or everyone should be on Tatooine or Bespin, just like not everything interesting happens in Boise, Idaho. It is a universe of neat gadgets, cool aliens, mystery, and a hint of magic. Espionage, military scenarios, Indiana Jones in space, westerns, old Star Trek, simple combat lost cultures, lightweight cyberpunk, smuggling, Pirates of the Caribbean, and even horror themes that all fit into Star Wars universe if done properly. So say, hey guys, you know, slow down. Come up with a great story, you know, and honestly, if anyone who collects them or actually played the adventures knows, West End Games just felt very rich in background, right? Very grounded. And now looking at this guide, I can obviously see why. Let's read the next one. It's called Don't Talk About the Past. It says, you may not discuss anything of galactic significance which occurs prior to Star Wars, A New Hope. This includes subjects such as the Clone Wars, specifics about the Old Republic, how the Emperor rose to power, how the rebellion stole the X-Wing prototype, the fall of the Republic, the extermination of the Jedi Knights, the history of Emperor Palpatine or Darth Vader, the Mandalorians, or anything about the history of the Jedi Knights. Now, this was, of course, before Tales of the Jedi and everything else would come out, but they put rules on there. Now, I don't know if those came from Lucasfilm, George, or what, but they had rules on where they could go, and nothing in Old Republic, that all that was off limits. Now I know going forward in the books and comics and whatnot, they were allowed a little bit into the Old Republic, but not too much. So, like I said, I don't know if those are rules or guidelines that were imposed upon them from Lucasfilm, or if that was just West End Games' own standard. I don't know. I kind of think it went from Lucasfilm, but again, I didn't see where that's stated, officially. So can't really say that, but it kind of would make sense. Like, why wouldn't they go to the Old Republic unless they were told not to? Anyway, all right, so it also talks about having no absolutes. It says, don't make stuff the biggest or best or worst or most anything. You can make something big and impressive and nasty by sheer description. You may not use these absolute descriptives because somehow, somewhere, somebody will come up with something bigger and badder, and they probably were inspired by your idea in the first place. I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. Anyway, let's go into the last one. It says, be fluent in Star Wars. It wants their West End Games writers to be fluent in Star Wars. So let's look at this. It says, know the Star Wars history of the universe. You are expected to know the history of the Star Wars universe chapter in the Star Wars role-playing game, 2nd edition. There is also a lot of information out there on various products that you probably don't know, as well as information from novels and comics that you should be familiar with. As a bare minimum, you are expected to be familiar with Star Wars, the role-playing game, 2nd edition, the Star Wars source book, the Imperial source book, the Rebel Alliance source book. A handy reference for anyone writing Star Wars is Bill Slavichek's A Guide to Star Wars Universe, published by Del Rey. It's a fairly comprehensive encyclopedia where much of the material, which has appeared in the films, radio plays, comics and novels, and even the role-playing game. If your product is set after Battle of Endor, you must also be familiar with the source books for Timothy Zahn's trilogy of novels. If you're using locations or places from the movies, you must have the Star Wars movie trilogy source book. You are likely to find other supplements like the Death Star Technical Companion, Galaxy Guide number 6, Tramp Freighters, and Galaxy Guide number 7, Mos Eisley, handy as well. Do not hesitate to call on Star Wars editors at West End Games with a history or continuity questions. Look at that! Now remember, back in the day, there wasn't that much out there, so they could say, yeah, get well grounded in this. There's just the Marvel comic books, a few of the books, and that was it. So for them to say, okay, if you're going to write about this, you need to study. You've got to do your study. You can't just sit around for 45 days and just vomit whatever you want into paper. You really have to study on it. Sorry, I did it again. Anyway, regardless of all that, I just really think that that was just unbelievable to hear West End Games tell their people, be prepared. Know your Star Wars. Don't just come in there saying, I'm hot snot, I'm going to write the best thing ever. No, study, read. And by the way, any of the authors who wrote any of those adventures, now I know why the tone was always the same. Anyone who's read through the West End Games books can agree with me, I think. I think they would agree that it kept the same tone. You felt like you were in the same universe, not different people contributing to it. Like, so many people say that's what the EU is all about, right? Oh, they just let the authors do whatever they want. Yet, any author will tell you they were not allowed to do whatever they want. They also go on to say that other points about the Star Wars galaxy you might find useful include hyperspace has been around for thousands of years. The Republic lasted for 1,000 generations or 25,000 years. It's so old that a lot of the past isn't too well known. There are millions of worlds in the known galaxy, the Empire, New Republic, settled space, and there's lots of worlds beyond the known galaxy that are unexplored or rumored to exist. Those outer worlds may have ancient technology, such as really old hyperdrives. There are billions of suns in the galaxy, and the Empire has at least 25,000 Star Destroyers. I don't know where they got that number, but that's kind of neat. But notice how they said 1,000 generations, because that was what was set in the original trilogy, right? 1,000 generations, 25,000 years. So here's how big it is. They even gave people a timeline on this. If you look at that timeline there, it even says, as a note, you may not discuss an error since it occurs before the films. So again, I don't know if that was the rule or not. But anyway, that's really cool. And it's really awesome to see how disciplined West End Games was going. And I really hope for the new stuff. Like, I don't know if they're using the same guide or something similar to it for new authors. I haven't heard anything about it, so I'm guessing not. I'm guessing they just submit whatever they want to, and then it comes back with notes. Sometimes maybe with no notes, who knows. But the thing is, though, West End Games really had a firm foundation when it came to bringing in writers to write about a galaxy that they still cared about, even though not many other people cared about Star Wars at that time. All right, folks, that's it for now. See you later.